in a session, you think it understands you, and then you'll go into a new session and it's like it has no idea what you were talking about.
All these models have amnesia from session to session. I loved the way that the memory function works, but it felt so constrained.
You had like taken off to a new level.
Yes, it is kind of this art and science of context management.
Working with a few local files has led to construct something that is like a partner.
It's a second brain that's accessible by all these AI tools in an efficient way.
I want to welcome everybody to a very special emergency episode of Josh Lowman Needs Money. And I want to introduce my friend and our fractional marketing leader, Derrick Hicks, to the show.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Happy to have you here. So the reason why we're doing this emergency episode is because Derrick and I, we first came up with the idea of this show, Josh Lowman Needs Money. We started talking to, SEO people and people that can help us do better, sell training products through email and cold email and things like that. And then suddenly this thing hit us like a freight train, and it's called Claude Code. When did you get hit with this Claude Code train?
Man, I mean, I think it first started with being Claude pilled last year. I started using Claude, and it's just the best. Like it was the best last year. It still is, in my opinion. Um, and then towards the start of this year, I think it was in January, I met with a friend who's an engineer, and I was talking to him about the things I'm doing with Claude, and he's like, "Dude, that's nothing. You need to be using Claude Code, and this is going to be way, way better for you." And so he put me onto it, and I was like, "Okay, well, I'll look into this." And I started digging into it, and there's a learning curve. Like it took me a little bit to get used to using Claude Code, and now I'm literally operating out of VS Code all day on my Mac. And
VS Code is an IDE. It's like something
correct.
computer programmers use that people like us would never, ever use,
Yeah.
right? Yeah.
Yes, two marketers using Claude Code and VS Code all day, like that. What is
It's
up with
weird.
that? It's
Yeah.
super weird. It's super weird.
Okay.
But
And just
yeah,
for context, the reason why we're doing this on the show is we've had over the last couple of years, we've had a revenue roller coaster. We might be crushing it. We're total heroes. Then suddenly it goes down, 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 and then it's painful. And so Derrick and I have been working really hard on how to solve this problem. And we started this show that it was about that. And then we realized this thing that we're so enamored with is probably the best tool that we should be putting our time into in terms of increasing revenue and cutting costs.
100%.
Yeah. And so that's why we're calling this emergency episode. We just want to start the conversation with the audience. We want to tell you guys what's going on. I'm not going to share my screen right now because I got a bunch of personal stuff on my Claude Code, and Derrick does too. But the next episode that we do about this, we'll share our screens and we'll show you what we really have going on. Because all of this can be sound a little bit hypothetical or hypey too, right?
Yep.
And so that's your story of how you got into it. My story is I have a client who's a CMO of a really, really good fintech company. Just a CMO, not a programmer. And I emailed him. I was like, "Hey, how's it going over there?" And he's like, "Oh my God, Claude Code has changed my life. I'm like 10xing my productivity." And I was like, this guy's like an executive at a fintech company that's doing really well. And it sounds like he's spending all his day in Claude Code. And he's not he's not one to be very dramatic about things. So when I heard him say that in December, I was like, okay, I got to get into this. So separately, I mean, we've been talking about AI for a number of months, but separately, I sort of got into Claude Code. And then I think there was a few weeks there where we would just come back on Monday and be like, "Oh my God, you won't believe what I've been doing."
Yes.
And they're like, "Okay, tell me what you've been doing." And you're like, "Claude Code." And then you're like, "Well, what have you been doing?" I'm like, "Claude Code too."
Code.
Yeah.
Totally.
Right. Okay. So I want to bring this up. There was a moment where we were both trying things out in Claude Code, and it's a little bit, you start working in a command line interface, but it's really nice because Claude can tell you all the commands you need to know. So there's a bunch of command line interface things that are really nerdy, but Claude can actually tell you, oh, well, you just have to enter this, try this out. What it allows you to do is to work directly with your own local files, which doesn't actually sound that powerful. You're like, well, what do I want with my own local files? Everything's out in the cloud. But something about that, now that you have your own data and information, you can do transformations and views of that information. And it's crazy because starting with just like working with a few local files has led, I think, both Derek and I to be like, to construct something that is like a personal AI operating system that actually knows almost everything that's going on in our lives, personal and business, and can tell us, like, hey, this is what you got going on today. This is really important. Don't drop the ball on this. And feels like you have a partner in trying to get your work done.
Absolutely. Yep.
Anything you would add to that? This is for people who have never tried Claude Code, and everybody out there is saying this thing is amazing. How do you describe that?
Yeah, I think for me, the biggest unlock or the earliest unlock for me was I previously was using Claude on the web and on my phone, and I was very systematic with the way I was setting up projects. I have like a project building skill, and so I'd run that skill, and it would create all these context documents for that specific project, and it was super powerful. Like, I mean, it really changed a lot of what I was doing in Claude, and I didn't know it at the time, but that's called context engineering. Like, it's a very lightweight version of it, where you're shaping the context that your AI is going to interact with. So that was a big unlock. But for me, the biggest unlock was when I realized by having all those context documents on your desktop and accessing it through Claude Code, you can reference all of your projects. So if you use the Claude website, or the app, you're constrained to the context within that project. You can't share documents very well. You can use skills to like share workflows and different context documents like that. But that was for me the big unlock was I
Yeah.
knew the power of even lightweight context engineering. And once I understood, I could access all of my projects from one place and connect the dots across them, that was that's when I really started to see the power. Yeah.
Yeah, like the way that we were working before Claude Code, if we were just worked in Claude, is like start a project. The
Yep.
project is about X. Bring all of the information that has to do with that project into Claude. You have to upload it. Then any like frameworks or ways that you want to work with that information, you might upload those files as well.
Yep.
And in the project, you're basically giving it all of this information, and and then once it makes an output, you might take that output and then bring it into a Google Doc. I'm going to do some editing on it, and then I'm going to take it from the Google Doc, bring it back into the Claude project, and
Yes.
it was a lot of putting information into boxes in different windows.
Yep. A lot of copy pasting.
Yeah. And,
Yes.
we got to a point where we had Google Drive folders of all of our context files, and we'd have to put them in here, and we'd have to update them on Google Drive, and then, it's just a real pain.
Totally.
With Claude Code, all of that stuff is right there in the center of where you are. You don't have to worry about where things go. It's gonna keep it all organized, and it's basically like, "Hey, all that stuff is right here. We can just move and make things happen."
Yes. Absolutely. Yep.
Okay, so I wanna just talk about a thing that happened, which is I'm working in Claude Code, you're working in Claude Code. OpenClaw happened, Claude Bot. I installed I bought a Mac Mini and I installed OpenClaw and, we're just kind of we went way over we really jumped the shark on this one. And then we would come back on Monday and be like, "Hey, what was your weekend like?" And I just noticed that somehow, um, you had, like, taken off to a new level that I was not at.
I
You were
unlocked
like, "I can't."
something. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, you had unlocked something, right. And, um, so you were telling me about it, and it turns out that it was like a kinda like context engine.
Yes.
And so basically Derek helped, install that context engine into my, Claude Code area, and my work has just taken off since I'm using Derek's context engine. So will you tell us about that? Like, what is it? Why did it come about? And, how
Yeah.
does it work?
I mean, it came out of that realization of like, okay, I have these context documents and these projects, and I loved the way that the memory function works in Claude within that project. I thought it was super powerful. Um, you can reference other chats, like past conversations, and Claude will go look it up and pull in that context. And I just loved that, but it felt so constrained to that one project. And I was like, there's got to be a way to do this. And maybe I could do it with Claude Code, because I started to connect the dots of like, okay, well, all of my context stacks could be in one place, and then I could share resources across different projects. And I just started trying to piece it together in a way that made sense for me. Um,
But okay, but what you've described there, everybody does that, right? Everybody is gonna use Claude Code. It's gonna be like, "Let me get all my context together, let me
right.
get all my documents in one place," but then people hit a kinda wall, and then
Yes.
you made it over that wall. So tell us about that part of it. What's the wall, and what did you do?
There are multiple walls that you'll hit. So, one of the first ones you'll hit is you just max out your context window too fast because you're just shoving a bunch of stuff into
And what
whatever.
is just for people that don't know, what is the context window?
Yeah. So, all of these models have a maximum amount of information they can put in to a given conversation. And they're
So
all
it'll
a little bit
basically, like it'll take, like, the prompt, information, context, and memory, all this stuff, and put it into this context window and be like, "Okay, LLM, here you go. This is all
right.
of the context that you need in order to do something interesting with this information."
Correct. Yeah.
And that
And I
that
think it's
maxes out at, like, um, how much does it max out
well,
at?
right now, Claude, is at 200,000, but you can pay for extra and go up to 1,000,000 right now.
Uh-huh. Okay. And most
Gemini's
context windows go up to 1,000,000 right now, right?
yes,
Like the latest
yes,
ones. Okay. Right, and then that context window becomes a limiting factor.
right.
First of all, it's limited, but also in order for it to really work well, you don't want the context window to be totally full either.
Right, yeah, you can go either way, right? You can have not enough context, or you can have too much, and it bogs down and gets confused. Um, and so part of context engineering, I didn't know the term at the time, but part of it is kind of this art and science of token management, like context management. How do you get the right amount of information into whatever AI model you're working with
Uh-huh.
at the
And
right
and
time?
and wait, and for those that don't know, what is a token? Here's a question for founders and CMOs. Can everyone on your leadership team describe what you do, who you serve, and why you're different? And can they do it using the same language? If not, you have momentum leak, and it's probably costing you deals, slowing your fundraising, and causing you to burn cash on marketing that doesn't land. This is the exact problem we fix at Goldfront. We have a 9-week sprint called Own Your Category that aligns executive teams around a single North Star narrative, including your category definition, mission, your positioning, and a messaging system that drives everything you do from there, from sales and marketing to fundraising and product development. We've done this for over 200 companies now, from seed stage to mature category leaders like Uber, Stripe, and Qualtrics. So if the story that got you here is not the one that gets you to where you need to go, you can learn more about our strategy sprint at goldfront.com.
So I'm not an expert on tokens, but it's basically it's it's like the measure of the words or
Right.
space that's
It's a
being used.
it's like you typically it's a portion of a word.
Correct. It's
Yeah.
like a couple letters
Yeah.
basically,
Yeah.
and so when you think about 200,000 tokens, that's typically going to be multiple books of information. You can shove a lot of information into that many tokens
Mhm.
in it within a context window.
Mhm.
So that was something that I started to realize. I was like, okay, how do I figure out how to get the right amount of context in at the right time? Because some queries I need a lot more context than others. Um, and so how do I balance that? And I started just riffing on it with Claude, like asking questions and trying to learn more about the best way to do it. And I ended up figuring out a 5-layer structure. And each layer summarizes the one below it in greater and greater detail. And so at the very base layer of this context layer, context system, context engine, whatever you want to call it, is full transcripts. It's full chat conversations with Claude. It can be full documents. Like that's the richest layer, but it's also the noisiest. There's a ton of information in there. And in reality, if you build the right structure, you rarely need to go down to that level.
Mhm.
And so I created this.
Like, the highest level is, like, values. Like, the highest level is, "I want to be happy," right?
Yeah,
Like,
yeah, or,
yeah.
in a Claude sense, it's your machine level Claude MD. It's who are you and where do I go look, right?
Mhm.
And so my machine level Claude MD just says I'm Derrick Hicks, and my AI memory structure, my context layer is here in this folder. Within that, I've got 20 plus projects, an archive, like all sorts of things. And each folder has this set templatized structure that summarizes the folder below it in greater detail. And I've automated this in a way that it just knows how to structure all of these folders in the right way and what to reference within the whole memory layer. And and that makes it easy for Claude to then start at the top, look at my query, and then it knows where to go. There's a directory, it points it in the right direction so that it knows when it needs to go deeper and how
Mhm.
and where.
Mhm. Right, right, right,
That
right,
was a
right,
huge breakthrough.
right.
Is just figuring out how do I organize this so it's super token efficient
Mhm.
and has everything in it. Like it remembers everything.
Mhm.
That was a big, big
Right,
breakthrough is getting to that.
right. Okay, so just to reflect that back, what most
Yep.
people do is, I'm gonna put in a system, I'm gonna put all my information here, so Claude's gonna be able to have access to it, but what we don't understand is, like, Claude can't handle that much information. It needs to focus on just the information that is most important for the job that it's doing right now, the thing that it's trying to answer right now. And what Derek has architected is not only a system of, like, how do the files relate to each other, which is kind of the easier part, but the
Mhm.
system of how do we decide what information you should pay attention to throughout the system in these, what is it, 7 layers or
There's 5, technically
okay,
5. There are some, like, middle
sub
layers that are.
layers?
Yeah.
Uh-huh, okay. And that piece is like magic. And then there's
Yes.
another piece to it, um, that involves not losing information and and maybe just to set this piece of it up, I could just say that when you work with Claude Code, you think in a session, you think it understands you and that you've solved a problem. And then you'll go into a new session that isn't the same session you're working like a different window, or if you start it up again. And it's like it has no idea what you were talking about.
Correct.
Like all of that context that was in that one session that you had is lost. And it sort of like wakes up as like a baby to the world every single new session, right? And there's some things that help with this, like the Claude MD file tells Claude like, "Hey, this is kind of what you're about and what we're doing here." But I think as a human, where you remember kind of like the conversation we had 5 minutes ago, it can be incredibly frustrating to start a new session in Claude and you're like, yeah, that one thing that we're working on, and Claude's like, I have no idea what you're talking about.
It's got amnesia. All these models have amnesia from session to session.
Yeah.
Yes.
So that's my way of setting up your start session and
Yes.
yeah, so maybe you could tell us about that.
Yeah, so the next, so the first hard wall that I think you run into when you're trying, I mean, another way of thinking about all this is it's a second brain that's accessible by all these AI tools in an efficient way. And and so the second thing you run into anytime you're trying to maintain some context documents is context rot. Like it goes stale, it goes bad, it's out of date a week later. And so, or a session later, right? There's like things you accomplished in that session, like you were just talking about. How do you capture that and make sure that your
Right.
context
And
layer.
right. And sometimes Claude Code is just terrible at time, just like out of the box. Like it might be a Tuesday and it thinks it's Saturday. Yeah,
Totally.
and some of these things that are just normal to us humans, it's like it doesn't know.
Exactly. And so you have to figure out how do you efficiently give it enough context at the right time, and then how do you keep that context up to date? And so the first thing I figured out was like, how do you structure this in the most token efficient way? So everything's there, but it's not using everything all the time and it knows where to go when it needs it. So the first thing. The second one was, how do I keep it up to date? And I tried a whole bunch of things and finally ended on really 3 things. Right now, you only have 2 of these, Josh, so we're gonna get you set up with the 3rd one. But the the first 2 is a start session skill, and the second one is an end, session skill. And what those do is they, smartly summarize everything that was accomplished. Well, I'll talk about the start one. So the start one, it's, it checks all the top level context documents. Who are you? What are your priorities right now? What project or directory do you need to be working in based off your opening session prompt? Um, what are we going to talk about, right? You're loading up that context in the most efficient way. The other thing that it does, because we're operating in a kind of a shared space with the team structure, this is very important. Is we're backing everything up in GitHub, and that start session pulls down the latest version if it's out of date. So that's really important if you've got multiple people working out of the same
Mhm.
space. And so that start session just makes sure that it's got all the right context to do whatever you need to do, and it's the most up to date based on GitHub and all that.
Okay, and so and for those like agency people out there, or people like that are non-technical, GitHub is it's just basically like the place to store your stuff and back it up if you're doing development.
Yes.
And it also has like a social network vibe to it, has content and things like that. But people will put their code onto GitHub, and it has become the place to back up your code, and also control versions of the code so that
Yes.
you could have multiple people working on code and not have that turn into a big traffic jam.
Yes. Absolutely. And so that's all of that goes into that like first skill that I created with Claude is the start session. So
Mhm.
loads all the right context. gets Claude spinning in the right direction, make sure it's got the latest update from GitHub. You work in there, you do whatever you need to do, and then when you're done, you run the end session skill. And what that does is it has Claude go and look back at everything you accomplished or talked about, whatever, and it pulls out the most important summary bits in a structured way. And it goes through and like I said, those 5 layers of context, it goes through and in greater or in less and less detail, more and more summarized view, it layers in the breadcrumbs to get all the context from that session. And it understands your entire context layer and can even update multiple projects or multiple folders all at once to keep everything in sync. And that was such a huge breakthrough when I figured that out, that you could basically keep your entire context layer up to date with a skill like that. Yeah,
Yeah, I mean,
it was a
so
huge breakthrough.
yeah, that's cool. So the very, simple version of that is there's a big window of all the stuff that you talked about with Claude and all the stuff that you did, and Derek's context engine makes sure that the right information from that window was captured and brought back into the system where it can be kept as sort of like a system of memory and
Correct.
files
Yep.
and such. Yeah.
So and
Okay.
then one last thing, the third thing is a nightly sync. And so I have a nightly sync because sometimes I might forget to run the end session skill. Uh, and what the nightly sync does is it is like really goes through everything with a fine tooth comb, looks for any of those open sessions, it runs the end skill, and it just cleans up the entire context layer and makes sure that it's not missing context in all the right places. And it just is that backup to make sure it's all up to date, that it's synced with GitHub as the latest version, all of that.
Yeah, it's cool. Yeah, well, it's been like oxygen for the work that I'm doing. And so just to skip forward to what I've been doing, so uh, with this context engine in the system, then I started creating almost like a agency OS. So what is the data model and the specific folders and projects and functionality that you would need to run an agency? I'm calling it Goldfront OS. Um, in the so that's been helping me understand what are my tasks, what are the tasks that the team needs to do, and it can pull in. What's amazing is it can pull in granola transcripts and email and Slack, and it can just create these tasks on its own. So I'll log into Cloud Code and it'll be like, "Oh, don't forget that this," and I'll be like, "How did you know that?" Because I said that to one person in a meeting yesterday afternoon, and I realized, oh, it's reading the granola transcripts, and it knows that and I didn't have to tell anybody or anything. It just shows up on my to do list. So
Totally.
that's a total moment of magic right
Oh my
there.
gosh, it's huge.
So I'm
Yeah,
building
I
all
I
these
had
things
I
out.
had the same
Oh,
experience, when I, started doing the same thing, right? Like, I pulled in all the granola transcripts and, having it run through that process of updating your context layer, it is insane. It's just
it's crazy.
it is
It's
magic.
crazy. Yeah. Yeah.
Yes.
Although I gotta say, like, I mean, some people have asked me, well, like, aren't you afraid of it making mistakes? And the hallucinations that were really prevalent in the past with AI have become less and less and less. And there's also a lot of things that you can do that would be protected from hallucinations. So, like a lot of much of what Derek and I are building are not using AI necessarily to execute something. So we could use Python scripts, or we can also use make.com or other ways of doing automations that are not AI based and are more like just regular software. Get this piece of information from this box, put it over here. But I did just catch Claude making a mistake on some like really important dates in my calendar. So it told me like, "Hey, I'm not gonna let this happen again." But I said like, "Hey, how did this happen?" And I had to admit like that was a hallucination. So
Oh,
it's not
wow,
completely
okay.
hallucination free. Yeah.
Interesting. Did you sometimes I find, I found a few moments like that or had a few moments like that, and I'm like, "Man, I think Claude got this wrong," but then I dig into it, and it was like the transcript was actually wrong.
Uh huh. Uh
So it
huh.
wasn't, you know.
That is the first time I found a hallucination, and that's what it said it was.
Mhm.
So I trust that. But
That's saying a lot because you and I are in these systems all the time.
yes, yes, yep,
Like,
yeah,
that's
that's
crazy.
impressive. Yeah.
Yeah.
So okay, so let's talk about what we're building towards now.
Mhm.
I'm gonna build out Goldfront OS, which is like my command center for running an agency. And what I'm gonna do in the next time we update, we come in and we do Josh Lowman Needs Money, and we're then the subject is Claude Code. I'm gonna show a working prototype of what that is, and I'm gonna show some of my Claude Code files and things. I've got to figure out what I can show that's not too confidential.
Yeah.
So we have to figure that out. So I promise to come back and show some of that next time. And so what are you working on, Derek? You're working to continue on with the context engine?
Totally. Yeah, it's that, I've spent a lot of time, like, really refining what the, really, like, the primitives, if you will, of, like, just the core building blocks of how this context layer needs to work, and I've rebuilt it, like, I don't know, 3 times now, and and I'm rebuilding it in a way that is portable, and it can, anybody can use it, right? And so that's taken a lot to figure out how to like rewrite all the scripts that run and the skills and uh, how do you create instructions or at least principles that Claude can follow as it or any AI agent. That's the other thing is like this could work with any AI agent. We just like Claude. Um, But how do you extend it? Like, you've done a lot of extending in, from that core base context layer, and you've added all sorts of really cool things, and you've been able to figure out how to make it work, but I think I could I could have set you up, for greater success if it coached your Claude how to extend it so things
Uh,
didn't get lost
uh-huh.
in that process, and so
Uh-huh.
I'm really close. I'm almost to a place where I've got a free version of this that's a little bit more lightweight, almost ready to go. And that's like a good starting point. And then like what we're working with, that's the full thing. It's got automations and all sorts of things. You've gone beyond that where you've got the agency OS, which is huge. But yeah, so that's where I've been focused is like, how do I get the foundational building block so other people could use it easily.
Yeah. Yeah. Cool. All right. So we promise to come back and report back and show people what we got, so other people can learn from this too. Okay, so I got to wrap it up. I'm gonna go have a sandwich. But Derek, I want to say thank you for being
Thank
here.
you.
Thank you for all of your genius ideas.
Ah, thank you. I appreciate it. I'm glad you went along with me in the journey and you're fine dealing with the weird hiccups of any new setup like this. So this is
Yeah.
great. It's
Cool.
awesome.
And so we'll be back. We'll report back soon. Thank
Awesome.
you.
Thank you.